أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي رب زدني علما. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers and sisters. Welcome to this session on planning an effective study routine, inshallah. So, in tonight's session, depending on it might be today or tonight, depending on which part of the world you are, inshallah, I will be sharing a few tips and techniques and strategies for you to effectively maximize your study routine and create a system that works for you, bi'idhnillah. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so before I share a few strategies on how you can manage your time, there are a few pointers that I wanted to also share so that we benefit. So it's important to realize, brothers and sisters, that time management would look different for everyone at different points in time, which means that you could be a working professional, you could be a stay-at-home mother, you could be a full-time student, right? Your productivity will look different each day. So, for example, some days you will find yourself being able to complete all your modules on time, and on other days you might notice that you're even struggling to complete one, right? And that is because there are a variety of factors that affect our productivity daily. Some days we have more household responsibilities, some days we have more deadlines at work, some days we have some family emergencies and other obligations, right? So it's important to note that it's impossible to stay productive all the time and that it's going to look different every day. But what really counts, brothers and sisters, are small, consistent habits that lead to big results. So, for example, if you have a consistent system in place of studying, right? Let's say a consistent outline of how many modules you want to complete every day or on a weekly basis, it gets a lot easier to get to your target. Now, it might sound very difficult to create those consistent habits, but trust me, it's not impossible, inshallah. So take this opportunity as your fresh start to begin this semester with the mindset that you can conquer procrastination bi'idhnillah. A few factors that actually kill productivity, because a lot of students come to me with issues about lack of productivity, right? And as a counselor, I do realize that there are many, many reasons why certain people or certain students don't feel productive, right? So there are two factors that actually kill your productivity: internal factors as well as external factors. So, internal factors could be like, for example, lack of motivation or interest in the field of study. So, let's say you are not interested, you find it boring, you're not intrigued by the subject or the course that you've taken up, right? So, this can actually really, really impact your productivity and performance. So, a lot of students, for example, find difficult courses really, really hard to concentrate on. And so what they do is they keep those courses, they keep those modules for the very last minute, and unfortunately it keeps piling up, right? So it's important to identify that when you say that you are not feeling like you're being productive, then is it because it's due to lack of motivation or interest in the course? If that is the case, then what works best is finding a buddy. We will talk about this in the next few slides as well. And then second reason could be burnout or stress from other responsibilities, right? So subhanallah, all of us are coming from different seasons of life, different points of life, right? Some of us are professionals, some of us are parents, some of us are also juggling studies offline, right? So sometimes certain situations in our lives can cause us to feel stressed, overwhelmed, and completely burned out, which definitely impacts our studies at IOU. So if this is the case, then I would encourage you to take breaks. Again, this is something we will talk about in the next few slides. Now, for external factors, we have procrastination as a reason for productivity. So, what do I mean by that? Sometimes a lot of students don't have an effective time management routine in place, right? There's no routine, there's no schedule, there's no system established, which makes it easier for students to fall into the trap of procrastination and keep everything in the end. So, in order to solve that, there's something called the 2 minute rule. Basically, what you do is whenever you feel like whenever you feel lazy, whenever you feel demotivated, just tell yourself that, okay, I'm going to do this for 2 minutes. I'm going to watch my lecture or watch my module for 2 minutes. And what that does is it helps you create a mood to get on track. So eventually, of course, when you start with a 2 minute rule, you end up watching the entire module yourself. So this is one of the techniques that work very well with people who struggle with procrastination. And of course, other external factors include unwanted commitments, right? So a lot of students, for example, waste, unfortunately, a large chunk of their time taking up lots of things that are not important or not a priority, right? So if you have taken up a lot of things on your plate, then of course it gets really, really difficult to make time for studies. And for in these case, and in this case, it's important to identify your priorities and start taking some space and ownership of the commitments that you want to invest your time, energy, and focus on. Now, how do we solve this problem of managing our time effectively and creating a study routine? So, number one, it starts with the intention, right? Everything that we want to do, everything that we want to achieve in this world begins with a sincere intention. Because the Prophet ﷺ was reported to have said that there is a piece of flesh inside us, and if it's sound, the entire body is sound. And if it's disturbed, the entire body is disturbed, and verily that is the heart, right? So if our heart is sincere, then it gets a lot easier to focus on our studies. It gets a lot easier to pay attention to our learning process. It gets a lot easier to push and motivate ourselves to continue this wholesome journey, right? So, some questions that I'd like you all to reflect upon privately, of course, is ask yourself, what is it that you're ultimately trying to achieve through your studies? What is it that you want to achieve through IOU or through this degree at IOU? Are you trying to achieve a job? Are you trying to achieve a certain position? Are you trying to achieve a title? What is it that you want to achieve, right? Next, think about how will studying at IOU benefit you? How does that benefit you? How does that benefit, let's say, your career, your time, your skills? How does that benefit you? How does that make you a better person? And lastly, ask yourself, are you ready to invest your energy, focus, and time considering the benefits that you've just thought about? Right? So, these are some questions that I always tell students to contemplate upon before they begin their modules every day, because reminders are very, very critical. Right? Sometimes, in the midst of all the hustle, bustle, and chaos of studying, we completely forget as to why we're here in the first place, right? So taking a minute to maybe just sitting in a quiet space, reflecting on your intentions, and then beginning with your module for the day would inshallah make a lot of difference. Bi'idhnillah. Next, assess yourself. So it's all about assessing where are you and what works for you, right? So again, one size doesn't fit all. So a lot of students do struggle with issues pertaining to productivity and procrastination, but we all have different problems, right? We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different experiences. And so one technique may not work exactly the same for everybody, right? So you need to identify yourself. You need to assess, where do you really stand? What issues do you have? What pain points do you have? What struggles do you have with your studies? So, for example, are you struggling with lack of interest? Are you struggling with burnout? Are you struggling with managing your time and saying no? Are you struggling with keeping up with deadlines? You really need to sit down and assess where are you at this point in time, right? Once you've identified your struggle, your pain point, then it is it makes more sense to move on to techniques that work for you accordingly, right? So once you've identified the cause of your unproductivity or the cause for your procrastination, then it gets a lot easier to address it, inshallah. Next is prioritizing. So the key to studying smart versus studying harder, the only difference that stands between them is prioritizing. Now, I encourage students not to study hard, but to study smart, because it gets a lot easier for you as well. So prioritize tasks based on three factors. Number one, urgency. How urgent is it? How soon it matters? Okay. Secondly, importance, how much it matters. So, how important is the task for you? Significance, how long it's going to take you, right? So, there are three factors that you need to think about when you're prioritizing something. Number one, how soon does it matter? How much? Number two, how much it matters? And number three, how long it matters. So we have something called in psychology the Eisenhower matrix. I'm not sure if you've heard about this before. You can see this quadrant on your right hand side, a box, a cube with a few names. So there's a section called urgent and important. Then there is a section called not urgent but important. Then you have something called urgent but not important. And then there's finally not urgent as well as not important. So Eisenhower basically constructed this matrix or this cube for us to plan our priorities better. And I hope, inshallah, this helps you, because this really, really helped me understand my priorities. So, what you can do is before you begin your day, maybe let's say right after Fajr, when you're starting your day, create a list of priorities by making this cube. All right. So maybe take a piece of paper and write down all your priorities based on this. So, for example, certain things could be urgent as well as very, very important. So these tasks must be completed right away. So, for example, let's say you have your assignment due tomorrow, right? It's urgent as well as very important. So it's a task that you must focus on right now. Then you have tasks that are not very urgent, but they're quite important. And such tasks need to be planned. So, for example, you know that you will be cooking dinner tonight and you don't have meat for dinner, right? So it is not very urgent because it's still daytime, but it's important because you will need to cook your dinner. So such tasks need to be planned. So maybe plan out a time where you will want when you will want to go out and get the meat. So you can plan it accordingly. Then you have tasks that are urgent, but they're not very, very important. So, for example, these tasks could actually be delegated. Now, these tasks could be like, for example, your friend decides to call you and ask you for some advice, right? Or ask you for some help with picking her kids from school. Okay, so such a task, although it's urgent, she needs help, but it's not important for you at this point in time. So, what you can do for such tasks is try delegating them. So, maybe asking someone else to do it on your behalf. Or let's say, you have a lot of dishes piling up in the kitchen, right? Or your kitchen is a mess. It's an urgent task, but it's not very important. So you could maybe ask someone, maybe your spouse, your kids, to help you around. So delegation is really, really important, brothers and sisters. And finally, there are tasks that are not urgent as well as not important, and these occupy and waste a lot of your time. So such tasks need to be dropped. So one of those examples could be endlessly browsing through social media. So this is how you could place your tasks for the day in four different core quadrants and prioritize the tasks that are most important for you, inshallah. And I like to give this analogy to a lot of students is that your mind is like a funnel, all right? It's like a filter. It needs to be given the right space. It needs to be filtered out from things that are not essential, that are not urgent, that don't require you and your effort, right? So in order to filter your mind from these distractions or these unwanted commitments, ask yourself before you take up any task or any responsibility every day, ask yourself, can this task be eliminated? Can this task be delegated to someone else? Or can this task be deferred to a later point in time so that it makes a lot more easier for you, inshallah? Next, systematic planning for effective studies. Now, this is technically the foundation for studying effectively. Um, Remember that this is a principle that I like to tell students. If something isn't scheduled, that means it will never be done, right? So if you have not made time, if you've not made a schedule for something, remember it's hard to get that done. So make sure you have a schedule in place, make sure you're using calendars, make sure you have a system that you have created so that you could go and continue your studies effectively. And while you're scheduling deadlines, you're scheduling your studies, make sure that you're also kind to yourself, right? As human beings, we have limitations, we have flaws, we can't be everywhere. So make sure you give yourself, you honor yourself with the right time, with relaxation, and with enough time for you to also spend with your loved ones. And try to set module deadlines using timers. A lot of students tell me that the modules are too long. I spend a lot of time on one module. It takes me super long. So what I tell them is set a timer on your phone. Typically, each module that you listen to is approximately 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes long. So try to set a timer, exactly the same timer on your phone so that you ensure you complete your module by that time, right? And of course, the longer you spend your time on a single module, the harder it gets for you to move on to the next module. So you will always have time to go back and revisit certain concepts or certain theories that you've not understood, but make sure that you're actually sticking to the time that you have. Then designate study days as well. Again, this is a tip that I found really, really useful with students who are working full time or who have other responsibilities, because Mondays are very, very hectic for everyone. A lot of people begin their work days on Monday, so make sure you take a break on Mondays and maybe complete your modules at the rest of the days. So for students who've taken up 1 to 3 courses, try to complete one module every day, except a day off. For students who've taken up 4 to 6 courses, try to complete 2 modules every day, except a day off. And for students who've taken up 7 to 8 modules, 7 to 8 courses, try to complete 3 modules every day, except a day off. Um, and of course, Ramadan is not yet around the corner, but hopefully in the next semester when it is, I tell students to also do more modules before Ramadan begins. But anyways, this could be a discussion for a later time, inshallah. Next, find the right space. The amount of time we spend on looking out for study techniques and memorization techniques, we must also invest the same amount of time and energy behind creating the right study space. So make sure you have your own study space or desk set up. Invest maybe on an affordable study desk, an affordable chair, maybe a desk lamp, if that makes you feel better. So it's also about creating a vibe, brothers and sisters, right? So, for example, imagine your study space to be like your home, right? Um, Maybe after a long day, when you go back to bed, do you not prefer a house that's nice and tidy, that smells really good, that's peaceful? Does that not make you feel really happy and content? It does, right? So likewise, when we're studying, it makes a lot of difference to have a good study desk or study environment to help you stay motivated and focused. So maybe, investing on a good chair, investing on a good table, investing on a study lamp can really, really help you go there, inshallah, and create a vibe for you to study effectively. And also try studying at the same designated area every day. So I tell this to a lot of students because most students, unfortunately, study from their beds, study from their bedroom, and it can get a little messy. So my advice to students would be to separate the area of studies from the area where you sleep, or the area where you eat. So maybe if you have a study desk, ensure you study there every day, so that you have a proper structure in place. And also, most importantly, goes without saying, try to remove distractions while you're studying. So it could be phone, it could be your pillows, so just to ensure you don't fall asleep, inshallah. Next, habit stacking. So this is a very critical concept when it comes to staying productive. So it's all about pairing your study habit with a habit, with an existing habit, or with a habit that you do every single day, right? So a lot of students tell me that, for example, Sister Saima, I find it very, very difficult to push myself to complete a module, or I don't really have enough time to complete my module. I'm so busy throughout the day. So I tell them this: okay, I understand you're busy. I understand you have commitments. I understand it's hard to push yourself. But you know what you can do? You can actually pair your study habit with something that you do every single day. So, for example, completing a module right after your Fajr prayer, completing a module right after you brush your teeth, completing a module right after you pray Maghrib, right? You pray every day, we pray every day, inshallah, right? So what that does, that helps to create a system, brothers and sisters. So the formula is to basically, before or after a current habit, you will complete a module, right? So let's say before Fajr or after Fajr, I will complete a module every day. Now, this increases the likelihood that you'll actually stick to your study habit and not procrastinate or forget about it, right? So the key is to identify the right cue that works for you. And you need to find your cues or daily habits that you do rigorously. So, for example, if you drink tea every day or coffee every day in the morning, pair up your module with tea or coffee. So every day after coffee, or every day before coffee, you're going to complete a module. 5 daily prayers every day before a certain salah, or every day after a certain salah, you're going to complete a module. Every day after eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you're going to complete a certain module. And maybe, taking a shower before you take a shower, or after you're done with your shower, you're going to complete a module, right? So habit stacking really, really helps, inshallah. And next is practice good study habits. So I tell students to go after the low hanging fruits first before the high hanging fruits. Now, what does that mean? So it means starting small than starting big, right? So start with easier modules, maybe start with interesting modules or interesting courses before you move on to the tougher ones. And reward yourself for completing the modules and deadlines in the process, and maybe have like a punishment for missing those deadlines. For example, it could be, let's say, if you miss a module for a week, what you can do is maybe have a punishment in place. Like, for example, you're going to give away $5 or $10 or 10 real as sadaqah, right? So every time you miss a module, you will have to do that. So that will really, inshallah, help you stay motivated. And next is studying collaboratively also works. So having a group of friends, having a group of colleagues, having a group of other class fellows, and studying together with them makes a really, really big difference, brothers and sisters. Suhba is the key. Companionship is the key, because unfortunately, online studies can get really overwhelming, can get really boring, because you don't see people, you don't interact with people, you don't meet people, right? So make sure you join the necessary Telegram groups, so that you can connect with other students, inshallah. Then we have something called the 10-minute revision rule. This is a great study habit for retaining the information that you've learned. So, for example, what you can do is pick a certain day of the week, let's say Fridays or Saturdays, whatever day that works for you, and dedicate 10 minutes of revising whatever you have taken notes of. So just quickly scan through your notes, quickly read through your notes as part of your revision, so that inshallah you're able to retain whatever information that you've learned until the midterm exams. And make sure you also utilize other study aids, like, for example, sticky notes, highlighters, mind maps, and summaries. Be creative, brothers and sisters. Make sure you invest in these things, so that it really, really counts and makes a lot of difference for you, inshallah. Lastly, seek help. So I tell this to everybody, and I'm telling this once again. I'm reminding myself and everybody here present tonight to seek help, and don't be shy to ask for help, right? So if you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling burned out, or if you are mentally not in the right place, talk to a therapist, seek help. IOU offers free student counseling services. So if you're struggling with meeting up deadlines, if you're not sure about how you can manage everything with your work, you're welcome to connect with me, and we can definitely speak through it, inshallah. And just a reminder again, that suppressing your emotions is like piling up debt that will come due. So if you're suppressing your anger, if you're suppressing if you're suppressing your anger, if you're suppressing your burnouts, your exhaustion, your overwhelming feelings, right? They will take a toll on your work. They will take a toll on your relationships, and they will also take a toll on your studies. So make sure that you are in a mentally and emotionally right place as you go through this journey with IOU. And of course, as a student counselor, I can definitely help you devise a study plan that works for you, keeping your well being as a priority, inshallah. With that, inshallah, I'm just going to end with a few good apps for effective studies that may work out for everyone. So these are suggestions, and these are apps that I've used personally when I was a student of IOU. And of course, these apps are not sponsored. IOU doesn't get anything out of it. So some recommendations for you, inshallah, in case you want to utilize certain apps as a part of your study system. بإذن. So with that, Jazakumullahu khairan kathira, brothers and sisters, for your time and listening to this session patiently. And inshallah, if you have any questions, you could leave them in the chat box so that I can answer them, inshallah. Okay, so I'm just going to wait for another minute, and inshallah, if there are no questions, we will end the session. Okay, so we have a question. I have lost a lot of days and now have to study the double amount. It's very tiring. Any advice? So my only advice to you would be that because you started late, it is indeed overwhelming. But hang on there, inshallah. Make the best use of whatever time you have remaining because, alhamdulillah, we still have over a month left for the midterm exams to begin. So make sure you make lots of du'as, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his help, and maximize the time that you have using the techniques and strategies that I just shared, inshallah. Okay, inshallah. So it looks like we don't have any more questions. So we will, inshallah, end the session. And if you have any further questions or need any assistance, you're welcome to get in touch with me by dropping me an email at student.counselor@iou.edu.gm, inshallah. So jazakum Allahu khairan kathira. Once again, brothers and sisters, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.